Good morning. On behalf of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual Organization, Meditation Center of Connecticut, we welcome you to our weekly Saturday workshop. We're very excited and happy that you've chosen to spend your Saturday with us. And so let's get started. And so I'm going to introduce our topic today, which is unlocking the key to living without fear. And our facilitator today, some of you might remember her from facilitating previous workshops with us. I believe it was probably last year, Kanupriya Moore. So Sister Kanupriya resides at the Brahma Kumaris Learning and Retreat Center called Peace Village in upstate New York. But if I could share a few words about Sister Kanupriya, I would say has a very naturally kind heart, treats everyone with equality, treats everyone with friendship. Even the moment you meet her, you could feel that level of openness and care. And also just, lives spirituality very naturally in her life. And, you would never know that there was ever a problem or a situation because she handles everything with ease, even when faced with a challenge. And I always appreciate and value her friendship and also her insight. And so I'm super excited to invite Sister Kanupriya to be with us today. To participate, please, use your Zoom hand, your video hand, the chat box. I don't know if anybody wants to come on video just for a moment to just give us a wave so we can see who's in the room. And then if you want to turn off your camera, that's fine. But it's always nice to see who's here with us. And so we see Pinkelben, wonderful. If anyone else wants to give us a wave. We see Kelly, great, and Radha, great. So, all right. So I'm going to hand it over to Sister Kanupriya. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning, and it's great to receive such a very warm welcome and a unique introduction to some of the qualities that only probably you observe. But I also want to mention that Sister Nalisha herself is being such a pillar of strength for so many in her work area currently. She was just sharing with me what really she's handling, protecting people and the jobs under the current administration or government. And she's like a lioness taking on everything with her spiritual strength. So that is something so unique about her, to stay grounded and help others. So thank you for doing what you're doing, sister. It's a lot of inspiration from you. Okay, so fearless lioness she is, and that's our topic today. How to live without fear. And I'm sure Sister Marisha will also have quite a few things to share with us about this topic. So really I was thinking about what is it that makes us fearful, right? What is the root cause of fear? And the greatest of all fear is, of course, that we are going to die, right? So this death is probably subconsciously, that is where all the fears are rooted. But also, when we think about it a little bit more, we also enjoy everything that we have and what we are doing. We enjoy the relationships we have. We enjoy the iPhones and the Teslas and whatnot, not right. But we live our lives as if there is no end, right? Although we know that there is an inevitable truth that is ahead of us any moment. But we don't really pay attention to that inevitable phenomena of dying, right? And something very interesting, somebody told me that, when I was 4, when this person was 4, he was dying to be in school, in high school, right? And then when he went to high school, he was dying to be an adult. Then when he was an adult, he was dying to get married. When he got married, he was dying to retire, right? So now he says that now I'm dying. Can someone teach me how to live, please? Yeah. So uh, this phenomena of dying, if we pay attention to it while we are living, we can live our lives not just fearlessly, but also happily, with contentment, with an understanding that will help us live our lives smoothly as well, right? And if we look at, what that particular moment that we call as death, what that entails is, wherever life denotes experience, right? Wherever there is an experience, we say there is life that exists. And death is where probably we would say that the experience of the physical world, right, of this physical world stops. And doctors say that it marks a moment, that particular moment marks the time where the vital organs stop to work, right? Your organs like the heart and the kidney and the lungs and all the systems which are powered by these vital organs, they also stop, right? But very interesting is also to note that some of the doctors, they acknowledge and believe that there is life beyond that, moment, what we call as death. So that we are more than the body, right? That belief has been growing, and especially in a study that was done in America, 93% of Americans believe that we are more than the body. There is something that survives, and that something in spiritual terms we call as soul, right? The soul is an eternal, living, conscient being. Body is like temporary, right? So very interesting I want to show you a video at this moment. In the video, there is Peter Fenwick, Dr. Peter Fenwick, who is a neurosurgeon in London. And he acknowledges this fact about how, we are actually more than the body. So we'll just see a short clip of that video. Of course, if you want to see more later, you should be able to look it up on the internet.
Hospice study. Now, what she finds is that what we said was correct. People do, in fact, go into this other reality. But we come now to the dying process itself, which is enormously interesting and important. And we all need to learn this. In fact, we should be taught it in school. And the way that dying, I think, it's like this. Deathbed visitors come, fine. Then, at some moment, you realize you're going to die. And it hits you hard. We're not coming back, guys. This isn't a getting well process. It's a dying process. And that then leaves you in a very difficult position, because you've never come across that before. You've always had some control over something, you now don't. And so you have to start giving everything up. This is absolutely fundamental. You have to give up the fact that you're going to go on living. You have to give up your wife. You have to give up your cat and your dog. You have to give up your children, your family. You have to give up your house and your job. You've got to give up everything. And if you don't, you remain attached. Now, attachment is the most difficult thing when you're dying. If you could give everything up, you'd have a very smooth transition. You go from this pre-transition, where you're attached, to transition, which is a sort of intermediate one, to post-transition. And in post-transition, you in fact have given everything up. And you go more and more into the spiritual domain, which I've described to you. And it's just like that. Until at the end, you've lost your ego, you've lost that part of yourself which has differentiated you, and you become what's called non-dual. That means that you do in fact merge with the universe. You have already lost all your trappings of being a body and a person, and you've just got this non-duality which is merging with the great. Then
So, like,
See this? This is a 400-ounce bar of solid gold. Back in the 20s,
so like Peter Fenwick was sharing, right? He was actually addressing the main reason, right, why we feel fear of dying, right? And I would like to use my whiteboard now. So, you know, we have seen many times in some of the earlier representations also that we have done together, that we are these spiritual beings, right? Points of light. And this is the soul who's living, conscient, and eternal. And here we are on a journey, right? We are, we are living on this planet Earth. We are living in this universe, and we are interacting. Our first very interaction, when I'm referring to the real me, is this true self, the soul, right? So the first interaction of this true self is with the body, in my case, Kanupriya's body, right? And then there are other interactions, like with things, with people, with gadgets, with, possessions like car and house and so on and so forth, with nature, right? And when we are interacting with people, in our innocence, right, or ignorance, whatever you want to call it, what we end up doing is we start to think that these people, these possessions, this position, right, and the pizza and the pets, right? Peter Fenwick mentioned dogs and cats as well, right? All of these things are mine. And in that calling of, calling these material or even people or other things as mine, we actually are making ourselves vulnerable to fear. Why? Right? So let's take a good example, very simple example, that suppose I'm sitting on this chair. Right now I'm sitting on the chair. As long as I am clear that, I'm just here to use the chair, I enjoy the chair, and I'm good with it, right? The moment I call this chair as mine, right? There is a sense of ownership that comes with this chair. And once that sense of ownership comes, then there is a big problem that begins. We feel that this calling the chair as my will make us feel very secure and safe, right? Because it is my chair, right? But the moment we call it my, there is a subconscious fear that appears in the mind, and that fear is fear of losing the chair. It's possible that a friend of mine comes and says, I like the chair, and wants to take the chair. So that's fine. It's possible that the chair is stolen. It's possible this chair is damaged, right? Many things can happen to the chair. But as long as we are clear that, it is not my chair, I will not be so affected by it. But the problem is when I call it my chair, there is a fear that of losing the chair. And for material things, what we end up doing is we end up collecting more and more chairs so that we feel that, we are secure and safe, and the fear would go away. But what ends up happening is if I collect 1,000 chairs, will the fear of losing increase or decrease? That's a question that we could ask ourselves. What do you think? Anybody wants to type it out or say it out on the mic? If I have collected 1,000 chairs, it will increase, right? But why we started calling it my is that we wanted to feel more secure and not have any fear. But we end up doing, in our innocence, we end up doing quite the opposite. So what is the method, right? This phenomena doesn't just apply to material things, but also, like we said, that the first interaction of the soul, this living conscient being of light, is with the body, right? And the body is also temporary. None of us have any plans to stay here forever, do we? We don't have those plans, but how are we living, right? We are actually not just saying that the body is mine, but we are confusing ourselves to be the body, right? And that is what is referred to as ego, right? Ego, it's a much deeper attachment. Ego just means false identity. So false identity means that I believe that I'm something that I'm actually not. And a good example is this. We all know John Lennon, right? John Lennon, very famous singer and a musician, and he had a big fan called Mark Chapman. And Mark Chapman used to idolize John Lennon. And there came a time where Mark Chapman started to dress like John Lennon, to behave like John Lennon, to walk like John Lennon, to talk like John Lennon, right? And then one day he thought that he is John Lennon. And he thought that there can't be two John Lennons on this planet. And he actually went and shot John Lennon. But this is an extreme case, but at some level, right, this identification with something that I'm really not. That is called false identification. And in our case, yeah, spiritual wisdom tells us that we are points of light, bodiless beings. And we are also eternal, immortal. We are beyond harm. And this experience itself, or this feeling itself, this understanding itself, can make us live happily ever after, right? But problem comes when we start to call this body and the things and people around us as my, and a deeper sense of attachment comes where we start to identify with the body, especially. And we think that we live in fear of dying because we think that we are going to lose the body, my body, me. I'm going to lose the me, right? Not just the organs, but also the whole identity will get lost, right? The false identity. So is there a spiritual answer to this? Right? Let us think about it a little bit more while I share another video. The closest experience of death is, called near-death experience. Everybody must have heard about it. So in near-death experience, the video clip I'm going to show you, this man who was a little boy, now he's, quite old, but he has the courage to share this only now. So this man, when he was little, he had many experiences like this, but one of them that he's sharing, where he went to swim in the lake, and he was drowning in the lake, and that's where he had this experience, the near-death experience.
In my mind, I popped out of my body, and in what I call a moment of no time, I'm at one point I'm in my body, and at the next point I'm in this tunnel, and I don't remember going to the tunnel. It was just, now I'm in my body, now I'm in the tunnel, and in the tunnel I'm warm, I'm happy, I can breathe again. I'm just filled with the joy and unconditional love. It was so stark. It was such a change from complete terror to complete ultimate ecstasy in a minute of no time. And I'm just so completely happy. I look down and I can see a body, and I'm saying, it's funny, I can see that because it was dark down there. And I look, and yep, that's my body. I don't care. I look, and I didn't care. At the moment that I saw my body at the bottom of the lake, I didn't care about my life. I didn't care about being on earth, because I knew I was home. And then I turned in the other direction, and now I'm looking at a spot of light. And the light is not very big, but it is so bright it should be burning my retinas. And I'm saying, wow, now that's a bright light, but it doesn't hurt. And now I feel myself being drawn like a magnet, like a giant magnet. The magnet's pulling me through the tunnel, and I'm starting to get closer to the light. And then all of a sudden, in a moment of no time, I'm no longer in the tunnel. Now I'm in the middle of a giant sphere about the size of a soccer coliseum, huge. And I'm hovering in the middle of this ball, in the inside of the ball. And around it, all 360 degrees, everywhere I look, are little motion picture screens of all of my lives and of all of the things that I'm doing. And the light is next to me. I don't see it, but I feel it and I know it's there. And the light and I start to communicate about all of these events in all of my lives. And I could see them all, and nothing was confusing. I understood everything. I could understand all the lifetimes. I could understand all the things it is. And when I would focus on any one particular screen, I would relive it. Only now, as I'm reliving it knowing the feelings and the effect that I have on the people that I'm communicating with in that scene. So if I'm with my family and talking to them about something, I know what they're thinking as I'm talking. So that, because nothing's hidden, nothing is unknown, everything is transparent. And I go from all my various lives, from being female, from being on other planets, on, and it seemed like I was there for months. But obviously in Earth time, I was only drowned for somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here saying this. So, and then as I'm looking at these things, finally, in another moment of no time, now I'm not in a sphere, I'm back in a tunnel. And now I'm really close to the light. I'm as close to the light as I am to the screen on my computer. And I'm standing there, and the light says, "Andy, I love you." And I'm impressed because it knows my name. And then the light says, "Andy, we love you." And when the light says, "We love you," the whole background and the light kind of disappear. And now there are thousands and millions and trillions of other lights, just like me. And they say in one chorus, "Welcome home, Andy." And at that point in time, I was absorbed.
So clear, right? That the soul is as if a witness to what is happening to the body, right? So this separation between the one who's eternal, immortal, living actually, and body is just lifeless. Right? And the feelings of the soul necessarily don't have to be dependent, right, on what is happening to the body. Like in this case, the body was drowning and, was probably suffocating and whatever, some uncomfortable circumstances. But the soul was free, right? Soul was experiencing something, lot of love, right? Lot of comfort, some sense of belongingness to that light, to that world of light. So those kind of feelings are very much possible. And we don't have to wait for a near-death experience for us to experience that. But spirituality is giving us a very good option. And that's where meditation, Raj Yoga meditation helps us. And one of the things that we can keep in our awareness to while meditating is to think of ourselves as these spiritual beings, to experience ourselves as the spiritual beings. And when we do that, then we consider ourselves to be these guests. The point of light is a guest in the body, and a guest is on a journey, right? So guest is separate from the body. So when we start to practice like this, right? Not sure. So when we start to practice like this, that the spiritual being, the soul, is a guest in the body, we start to see our life here as not a beginning and an end, right? But we start to see it more like a journey that we are on. We know that there is an end to this body, to the current circumstances, but we also know, when the more we start to see ourselves as guests, as eternal beings who are just here on a visit, visiting the body, visiting this physical world, we start to relate to everything in the right manner, if one were to say, when we start to see the bigger picture, right? That we are just on a journey, and the end of this interaction with the body, or these particular people, or these possessions that we have, and whatever else, that will lead to a transition to another phase, another scene, another body, another set of people, another set of circumstances, and possessions and everything. So when we start to broaden our perspective like that, broaden our sense of time, then we start to grasp this spiritual reality about ourselves. And then we don't feel so sad, right? Or fearful that we have to go through something very terrible if we have to face death, which is inevitable, like we said. So that's a good way, right? And adult intellect is actually capable of grasping this broad, picture, or a bigger picture, to broaden the sense of time, right? When children are there, for example, children, they can't see, they can't understand time so well when a child. For example, if somebody is out of the room, right? If mother goes out of the room, the child will start crying. Even if the mother has told the child, I will come back in 5 minutes, but because the child cannot see the mother at that very moment, he feels that mom has gone, and he starts crying, right? He feels fearful. Something similar, right? That when these beings of light are invisible, right? And the moment of death of this one particular body, right? It just marks a transition, and if we can't grasp that, then at that time we feel, oh, this is the end, and that then we are not very happy about that end. But adult intellect is very much capable of grasping, and it does take practice too, right? But the more we start to meditate and spend more time in contemplating, reflecting this reality, the more we are able to live without fear, right? Not be anxious about, say, even if the health is, with age is deteriorating, or other things are happening around us. We are able to accept this, not just for ourselves, this phenomena of death, but also we are able to accept this if something happens to our family and friends, right? Then how do we not just offer condolences to them, but also offer strength to people and our family when somebody close, dies. So this is very much needed, required. Yes, Navisha, ma'am.
I think it'd be a good time to stop and pause and ask if there's any questions or comments from the group. Would that be okay?
Yes, definitely.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? You can unmute yourself, you can use the chat box. We kind of want to hear where everyone's at right now. It's a topic we don't always talk about, I know.
Yeah.
You know, I think for many, the idea of this, you know, because it is this unknown, you know, it's this feeling of unknown, it's this feeling of not existing that sometimes many have a hard time even facing or thinking about. I see Al has a hand up, so let's go to Al first.
Hello.
Hello.
So I had a question. So I actually had a near-death experience years ago. I was 24, and I got hit by a truck, and I was in my car, and I'll never forget it. When I talk to people about near-death, my grandfather, who I was very close with, passed about 3 years before that, and I, was like literally like sitting right next to him when I was knocked out unconscious, and bright light and everything else. And I actually got into yoga because I wanted to find an experience where I could get as close to a near-death experience as I can. And I found with yoga, and I teach yoga and meditation, I found that that's actually the only time I could really ever get back to close to that experience, and just being, at that moment of peace. I was just, my question for you is, what are some other ways? I think that the more you get into that type of experience, and it's like you said, it's better to you're more prepared for death for yourself and family members. So I was just thinking, is there other techniques that you do or could give examples of that can give someone a near-death experience? Thank you. By the way, I always appreciate your talk.
So the aim is, why I showed the video is to show the, the separation between the soul and the body, and that how the feelings, the soul has very different feelings or can choose, right? In a near-death experience, it is not initiated by us, right? It happens. And sometimes it is helpful for us to know what that means or what that feels like, right? But our aim here in Raj Yoga is not to have a replicated near-death experience, but to experience the reality. And to even know and understand that we have a choice, right? The more we experience the soul's reality, the more we start to understand that the soul is actually free. Freedom is natural nature of the soul. Freedom from what the body is going through in this case, right? Another example we give is car and driver. If something, if there is a scratch or damage or dent on the car, that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't necessarily mean that anything has happened to the driver, right? So here, the body is like a car, right? And the driver is this point of light, the soul. So if the body has become old or, going through some illness, the driver still has an option to connect to his reality and experience love, experience peace, experience freedom, all of that. And of course, one thing is about the moment of dying, right? The last moment of death, and the practices in Raj Yoga will help us there. But also another family member, when they were dying, they were not really scared about anything, right? Many times some get very anxious very um, fearful, right? And like Peter Fennick was mentioning in his video, then it becomes, like they become restless because they have to leave everything and they haven't worked on the attachments. They haven't um, left any of the attachments. In fact, they're clinging more and more. But some don't have any problem in leaving the body. At the end moment, they are very peaceful. So when asked, they say, most of them, they say that, I have led a full life. And so I feel very content. So contentment is a big part, right? The moments that you live, if you have given your best in those moments, if you have done whatever you could do in those moments that you have lived for, then you will feel free. You will not feel fearful or scared or any of those feelings. So it's easier then for us to really experience the truth of the soul also. So to lead that kind of life, it's not just about sitting and meditating, but also doing, right, good actions, doing the best we can to help ourselves, to help others, and whatever else we can bring for the benefit of everybody. Does that help, Al or Nalisha, if you want to add anything?
I think what we're hearing from both the video and what it might be, and I'm not going to assume, but what I sense is that there's that sense of peace that is the experience that many are connecting with. When in that moment, like from the video and things like that. And it's, there's almost like, well, how do I experience this in my life, And I know spiritually we talk about the consciousness of the soul. And like you were talking about, separating the soul from the body, the inner spirit from the body. And what does that actually do for me? And so, I know, Zoila, I saw your, it's good to discuss because it is a scary topic because, nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody likes to talk about that piece of it because we see it as an end. We see it as something final and we think about all those we leave behind. But like what Al is saying, he's trying to experience something similar while still alive. And I think what it is there is a sense of peace and connection that is, is sought after, where it's not so much of the awareness of this body, but that freedom of spirit. And I think we would call it this, like you were talking about, the soul, the consciousness of the soul. And so, it's about getting back to my original nature, my original qualities of being peaceful and calm and patient and kind, but in a way that's not about the physical, but really through my inner spirit and my inner being. Anyone else have comments or questions? I know this is a very different topic than we've tackled before in our workshops. So even if you're confused by something or something's not connecting, or if you have some insight you want to share, we'd love to hear your voice, or please use the chat box, but it'd be great if you can unmute yourself and we could hear you.
Hi,
Yes, Zoila.
this is Zoila. We've been talking about how we prepare ourselves, and I wonder, how do we prepare our loved ones? Because as you're talking about all this, I think of my son and how he reacts to loss, where he doesn't want to deal with it, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to look at pictures of loved ones who have gone. And so, even though we're talking about how we prepare ourselves, sometimes I worry about him when I'm gone. How do we prepare our loved ones who don't necessarily attend these sessions or, kind of follow what we do? Thank you, if possible. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, actually why I chose this topic is because some of my close family members, they lost their mothers recently in the recent years. And what I found was they were feeling extremely, lonely, and because both of them were very close to their mothers. Um, and I didn't know, like, how to comfort them. But I think the biggest thing that they appreciated was, mostly when we hear about somebody left the body, then we try to sympathize with them. We try to, provide some kind of condolence. But I think what really helps is a little bit of spiritual insight, right? Just this knowledge, that one or two sentences that the soul is on a journey, and that the soul never dies. And that helped them to actually let go of the feelings of sadness. When you understand that whatever the feelings that you hold for the soul who has departed, whatever feelings you have as a close family member, that reaches them through vibrations, through energy exchange. It reaches them, although they are not in a body. And that will keep pulling them back and hold them. So if you want them to be really happy, the one who has departed, then to let go and to, think of them with the good memories that you have created, and think of their good qualities, their specialities, and so on and so forth. Not so much as they left and, left me, or left and that I'm never going to see them again. But understand that the soul is on a journey, and it really helps, I think. And there was another colleague of mine who lost her son, who was very young, 20 years old. And she was in her 60s, I think. And because it was, a sudden death, and so many, like thousands of people actually had written to her or visited her on the day. And she says that I had written an email to her also, but she got back to me after, a few weeks. She got back to me and she said that everybody was offering me sympathy, but only your whatever few lines I wrote, your email, I kept going back to, because it gave me strength when I knew that my son is just on a journey, and that it's in my benefit and also in his benefit for me to let go of those sad feelings and depressing feelings about, or negative feelings about this whole incident.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Another very small thing. Is it okay, Nalisha? I want to share another small video clip, but also to know that, in this video clip, Peter Flennick is talking about the fact that we don't die alone. I think that is another big fear, that we will be left alone, right? A fear of dying includes that fear. And he talks about this very interesting phenomenon. So let's look at it quickly. Another few minutes.
A close relationship will then can make a visit. And this is important because as you come up to death, you can actually put off your dying for a bit, because sometimes some of the deathbed visitors you have say, I'm going to come back on Tuesday. and you'll die then. But remember that we've got two sorts of narratives running. One is where you have more control than you probably actually do. So you can remember that you can negotiate with your relatives if you want to live a little bit longer. But when you actually die, if you have a drive, say, to go and see a daughter or a son who couldn't be there with you, then you can visit. And the visit is very specific. We've got a lot of these and we've analyzed them. And they occur at the time of death. 99% are all within half an hour. Most are at the actual time of death. And it depends on the mental state of the person who receives the visit. If you receive the visit and you're awake, then it will be a feeling that somebody you know is dying, the feeling that they would like some help in some way, or you feel some catastrophe is occurring. Those are the sorts of feelings you have. If, on the other hand, you're asleep, then it's quite different. You get a narrative dream, and here's an example of one. A woman woke up. I think she was actually in a narrative dream, and she saw standing at the end of the bed her son, and her son was dripping wet. And her son came closer and closer to her, and as he came closer, he came into the light and became transfigured. He gave her a message, which many of them do, and said, "It's okay. Please don't worry. I'm all right." And then the whole thing faded. Now, the interesting point is that she's in Australia and he's in England. And when she can, when the time zones adjust, she rings up and she finds that, in fact, he was drowned at that.
I think I just won my taxes.
Oh yeah?
I just switched from TurboTax to H&R Block. It was so easy.
Time in England. And so there was a component of what was happening in that he had wet clothes, and then his transformation and disappearance at the end. So that's not an unusual story. Sometimes they just come and give their message, which is always, "I'm okay, please don't worry," and then move on. So those are called deathbed coincidences. Now,
So, so good to know, no? That you don't leave alone. And you have family visiting and things like that. Okay, so I think it's good for us to just summarize, that to know that, we are on a journey. That's the biggest realization one can have and can live with, right? Then we don't even cling on to things that we are today. Some of the things that are so important to us today, right? Like somebody insulted me this morning, or why don't they give me promotion and they give everybody else, right? Why are they firing me from the job? Or the stock markets are going down, I'm losing money. Yeah, all of those things. The importance of those things is put into perspective if we think of ourselves as these beings who are on a journey, right? And that that there is an end to all of this any which ways, right? So to focus on what is important, to focus on truth, to focus on experiencing the truth. And we can also do a short meditation, but maybe another opportunity for you all to ask any further questions if you have, or to share any comments. Please do feel free.
Any questions or comments before we go into our meditation? Right, I think we can go into the meditation now. Great.
So we just keep our body relaxed and come into a gentle, normal rhythm for your breathing. Keep the feet flat on the ground. And just as you bring your awareness to from bottom to up, just relax each muscle in the body. And we use spiritual sight to see the self sitting in the middle of the forehead, the true self. A point of light. Point of light is a guest in the body. He's here for a short time. He knows that the body has an end. In fact, everything in this physical world has an end. But he's free, free from fear. He's here for a short visit anyways. And he chooses to enjoy every moment of his visit. He knows nothing is his. He calls nothing as mine. He cannot own anything. And so he cannot lose anything. He's immortal, beyond harm, invisible, point of light. He's always and forever living. On his journey, every moment seems like a gift. He's lucky to have this experience on this planet Earth. Lucky that he can see, can hear, has some people to relate to. Everything is a gift he feels blessed with. And so he's content. Feels full. And he sees the bigger picture. This is a journey of happiness. He's loved by the true family. For the next 24 hours, we can take little homework for ourselves, where we remind every hour, we remind ourselves just for a minute that the soul, the invisible living being, is a guest. Sure. Hey. We are at that time. All right, so we're at that time where we have to come to a close. And so just to remind everyone, we'll be back next weekend. So please continue to join us, please invite others, and a big thank you to Sister Kanupriya. So we hope to see all of you again very soon.